Welcome back once again to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Now, as regular listeners will know, I always say on this podcast that technology works best when it brings people together. But if you spend any amount of time online, you won't have to wait long until you quickly see that although we're all using the same technology, there are a few generational issues out there. And by that, I mean, there are the baby boomers or silver surfers. Then we have people like myself, Gen Xers, who remember the time before the internet and before smartphones. Yes, I'm quite aware how old that makes me sound. And then we have millennials, who despite being the cool kids in town for so many years, they now find themselves heading towards middle age themselves. And then we have Gen Z, who can just be found calling anyone over 30 boomers or boomer alert whenever they see anything. And waiting in the wings are Gen Alpha, who are going to be calling Gen Z boomers in just a few years' time. This is the kind of cycle that we're trapped in right now. But if you're a business, how do you talk to these different audiences? And in order to appeal to all generations, businesses must strike that perfect balance of authentic and being real, while also offering the same sense of aspiration. How do they do that? And what is the role of technology in all this? Well, buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Utah, where Carissa Flinders from a company called AWIN is waiting to discuss the tangible ways brands can market to Gen Z and millennials effectively, and the technology involved too. So, a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Neil. It's great to be here. Very excited to be on the podcast today. My name is Carissa, and I am currently the team lead over influencer partnerships at AWIN.
Fantastic. And I'd love to take you back in time for a moment. It's something I always like to do with my guests. I don't just talk about the success and everything that you're doing now, but where your passion for technology came from, or the moment that put you on the path you're on today. Does anything spring to mind? Was there a significant moment that you can remember?
Yeah, that's a great question. My background has been, I've been very lucky to have diverse experience within marketing. So really my experience started as a few different internships in Los Angeles. I worked for a few different retail brands such as Guess and Nasty Gal, working in various marketing positions with Guess. I was on the PR team. Nasty Gal was marketing. And so really kind of came up through the retail space, but I ended up moving back to Utah, which is where I'm currently based. And I started a position with a company called Jane.com. And Jane was very interesting because the company was started by a group of developers. So Jane was an online boutique marketplace, functioned very similarly to Etsy, working with a lot of small businesses, sellers, and really functioning as this platform where these sellers could promote and sell their products. And the really interesting thing was, it was kind of this intersection of my retail experience with tech. They had a really robust development team and tech stack. And I think that's really when I got my first taste of working in the tech industry, and kind of having this nice intersection of what I had been passionate about, which was typically retail, with technology. And I think too, being in Utah, it's interesting. And I don't know that a lot of people know this, but there is quite a budding tech scene in Utah. So there's an area in Utah called Lehi, which is about 30 minutes south of Salt Lake City, that has been dubbed the Silicon Slope. So there are a lot of tech startups in Lehi, and this is where Jane was based. A lot of California, the traditional Silicon Valley brands and companies have relocated to Salt Lake City or opened offices in that area, which I think was really interesting to kind of be in that scene, to go to different tech meetups and work with, we had Adobe across the highway from us. And so I think that that's really where my passion and interest for tech came from, that really put me on the path that I'm on today.
Wow. And I'm a little gutted now that when I went to Utah, I didn't get to see that little bustling tech scene. I was probably too busy looking for Skinwalker Ranch or something like that. But of course, that path led you to where you are now, and you pride yourself on this global community of people, technology, business intelligence, insights. But what's the story behind the company, and ultimately the kind of problems that you set out to solve with tech?
Yeah, absolutely. So AWIN is an affiliate marketing platform. Really, as you probably know, many listeners might know, affiliate marketing is definitely not new. It's been around for years. And with AWIN specifically, we got our start around 20 years ago, and acquired a few different companies. Affiliate Window is one, which came together and created AWIN today. In North America, specifically in 2017, we acquired ShareASale, which was a leading affiliate platform within North America. And so currently under the AWIN group, we have the AWIN platform and the ShareASale platform. And working across both of those platforms, we work with over 240,000 partners, and that includes traditional affiliates, global mass media houses like Condé Nast, and others, as well as trusted micro influencers. And we work with a lot of innovative fintech businesses and tech partners as well. And really, using the AWIN platform, advertisers can generate more sales, expand their customer reach, and really strengthen their brand. And retailers that migrate to AWIN from other competitor platforms tend to experience triple-digit affiliate program growth and 63% uplift in revenue. And globally, we are a global company. We have reach in many countries. We're trusted by over 21,000 brands.
Wow, that's incredible. And a topic I wanted to explore with you today is it's incredibly scary to think about this, but there are some millennials that are actually preparing for middle age right now. And Gen Z are the new kids in town. And so essentially, we've got one of the largest generations in the US and the other at the forefront of shaping expectations for brands. But they are both different with different expectations. So how does marketing to both Gen Z and millennials really work?
Yeah. And I mean, you actually, it struck me to my core when you mentioned the middle age comment, because I am a millennial who is approaching middle age very quickly. So when you said that, I was like, oof, that resonated. But yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, it's interesting because Gen Z and millennials are very close in age, but they're so different in the way that they consume media, their buying habits, and what types of marketing really resonates with them. I think that, especially being a millennial myself, I will get on TikTok and I will see all of these jokes about how now millennials are the boomers of the internet, or how Gen Z thinks that a millennial trend or a millennial phrase is cringy. And I think that it's so funny to see that, especially too. I also see a lot of videos talking about workplace habits, how millennials are very driven by perfectionism and Gen Z just doesn't necessarily care. They are who they are. And millennials have always been kind of chasing these high standards and this real picture of perfectionism. And I think that when it comes to marketing, it's very tempting to create one marketing strategy that appeals to both groups, especially if your target audience or your core demographic kind of exists within both of those generations. But I mean, they really should be viewed separately. And I think that a lot of this ultimately has to do with the way each generation grew up with the internet, right?
Yeah.
Millennials, had this unique experience of seeing the internet boom. I mean, speaking from a millennial perspective, I created a Facebook back in 2010 when it was a very new thing. I came up with Instagram. There was a time when I was only using Instagram as a photo editing app rather than, as this major social platform. And they were also exposed to more traditional marketing. I think that with millennials, brick and mortar shopping experiences were very important to them. It was kind of a core memory of their childhood. It's this very unique hybrid. And Gen Z, on the other hand, has always been digitally connected. They don't necessarily know any different, which makes them a very always on, very fast paced generation. And although there's a lot of overlap here, especially because both generations are on the internet, very actively using mobile devices, social platforms. There are different experiences and expectations when it comes to marketing that resonates with them. And I think that ultimately, if your target audience includes both of these generations, it's really important to keep some of these differences in mind and adjust your marketing strategy to appeal to both groups.
And if it makes you feel any better, Gen Z will be the boomers of the internet sooner than I think. They'll be the butt of Gen Alpha's jokes in a few years.
That's very true. That's a very good point.
And as this is a tech show, I've got to say, what MarTech trends are becoming increasingly important when marketing to these new generations and the multiple platforms that they're using?
Yeah, I mean, my mind immediately goes to mobile. How can you improve mobile solutions? Both of these generations are shopping on mobile. How can you tap into social shopping? I feel like that's something that's really come up over the last couple of years, is this idea of social commerce. How can you tap into social commerce and social shopping? You know, I believe it's nearly 70% of Gen Z and millennials prefer digital channels. And although they are using different platforms and things, they both spend a lot of time online. And I think that ultimately it's really important to design for mobile first, you know, ensure that your platform or your website is mobile friendly. Ultimately, how can you make this the easiest shopping experience possible to help you increase conversions? How can you improve your mobile experience? And I think that something else is also tapping into influencer marketing, you know, meeting these generations where they're at, what platforms are they using, and which creators or influencers can you build partnerships with that will really resonate with them.
And as you said, millennials and Gen Z are quite close in age, but they do have differences. So can you tell me a bit more about the kind of marketing that resonates with them? Because I think for the most part, if you're trying to sell at them, they can see straight through that at 10 paces, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, as I mentioned, I think a lot of it relates back to the way that they grew up with the internet. I think part of it is millennials were on Instagram when it first started, which I think really fueled this idea of always needing to have this perfect aesthetic. I mean, influencer marketing, when you think about it, was a fairly foreign concept several years ago. When I think back to, I mentioned I was interning on the PR team at Guess, that was back in 2014. And this concept of influencer marketing was incredibly new. The term creator hadn't come about. The term influencer hadn't come about. They were still bloggers trying to navigate how do you work with these people. And I think that rise of influencer marketing and the rise of Instagram and these perfect aesthetics, you needed to have perfectly edited photos, really drove a lot of that. And I think that millennials also have, with this view of perfectionism, they have very high expectations. I think especially when it comes to brand experiences, shopping experiences, they have very high expectations when it comes to all of that. And Gen Z, as I've mentioned before, doesn't necessarily care. I feel like you continue to hear this buzzword of authenticity lately, especially as I mentioned, my role is in influencer marketing. I think that especially over the last year, it's something that you continue to hear is authentic content. How can you be more authentic? And I think that this authentic content is ultimately what resonates best with Gen Z. They don't want to shop from a brand that's trying too hard. And I think that, as I mentioned, some of these jokes on TikTok and videos that you see, Gen Z sees right through that. Like you mentioned, they don't want to shop from a brand that's trying too hard or that thinks that they need to jump on all of these TikTok trends or they need to get on Twitter and be this funny brand personality. I think it's really important to be authentic ultimately, especially when you're attempting to appeal to Gen Z. And I think as it relates to influencer marketing as well, you can really work with different creators that resonate with your brand and resonate with the audience that you're trying to appeal to. I think as well, Gen Z also has a very short attention span. They need attention captured quickly. You need to capture them quick or else they're out. And I think that that really comes from the way that they grew up with technology. I think that it's the same way with TikTok. I think that's why a lot of them are on TikTok, why they like TikTok. It's short form video content. It's easy to digest, and you can capture their attention really quickly. So I think it's really about striking the right balance between both of these groups.
And I think for a lot of business leaders, that the fact that this generation cannot remember a time before the iPhone, before the iPad, scares the life out of them. So are there any other tangible ways brands can market to Gen Z and millennials effectively? And also, what role does technology play in all this? Because, again, they've got so many different devices and things now, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that technology is a huge part of it, but something that we also haven't touched on yet with Gen Z is the Gen Z in particular is very diverse. They're one of the most diverse generations. Yeah. And I think that with that, they really value brands whose values align with theirs. And I think that a phrase that I've seen pop up quite a bit in the past while is vote with your wallet. And I think that that's something that Gen Z finds to be very important as a consumer. They will support brands that align with their ethos, align with their values. And so I think that as a brand, you really need to establish those values and promote those. Do you value diversity? Is your product sustainable? Just really being open and honest about your corporate responsibility and what you're doing to give back. I think that Gen Z really wants to be a part of something. I think looking at technology more so, I think it's how can you meet both of these groups where they're at? You know, which platforms are they active on? As I've mentioned several times, Gen Z is very active on TikTok. Do you work on a TikTok activation, some kind of marketing campaign on TikTok? Maybe you're working with some TikTok creators. I am thinking in my head, I've actually laughed when I've seen some different creators on TikTok. I'm like, I have no idea who this person is, but they are huge and have millions and millions of followers. And that's someone that resonates with Gen Z. I think that, again, it's about really meeting them where they're at. I think too, with millennials, a lot of them are actually still using Facebook and using Instagram quite frequently. I think another medium is millennials are still checking their emails, which a lot of marketers, I think, kind of gloss over email marketing, but email is also a really effective means of targeting some of these groups. So I think really it's meeting these generations where they're at, which marketing mediums are resonating with them, and kind of planning your marketing strategies from there. And I think ultimately as well, something you can always do as it relates to technology, and as I've mentioned, is just continuing to do everything that you can to improve your mobile experience and improving your mobile shopping experience.
And we've mentioned all the usual suspects so far: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the new kid on the block. But the one we've not mentioned is Snap or Snapchat. Mm-hmm. Is that still a big hit with Gen Z?
I feel like Gen Z uses Snapchat quite a bit, but I don't know that I have, just being completely honest, I don't know that I've necessarily seen many effective marketing tactics on Snapchat. You know, you will see in the stories section, you'll often see a lot of different pieces of marketing, whether it's products, or you often see a lot of sponsored articles and things. I think that Gen Z is definitely using Snapchat, but I'm not necessarily certain that it's a medium where marketing will be effective to them. And I know as a millennial, I am definitely not on Snapchat anymore. And I don't think that a lot of my generation is anymore either. I think that one platform that I am very interested in to see what happens with it or how it relates to brands and influencers and creators is Be Real. Yes. I'm not sure if you've seen much about Be Real, or if you're on Be Real, Neil.
my son has told me all about Be Real, and they go up to random people in the street, get them to take the photo. Obviously, it takes a picture of that person too. Yeah, it's a hilarious concept, but I mean, again, as you just said, to give anyone an idea if they don't know what Be Real is, essentially it's this app
where at any given time during the day, you will get a notification that says it's time to take your Be Real. And you have 2 minutes to hurry and snap a photo. It sounds like your son has been on the street when his Be Real notification has gone off. But I think that that's why Gen Z loves it, is because it's authentic. You're forced to post at this time, no matter what you're doing. You can't make it seem like, oh, I'm going to wait until I'm doing something cooler and then put it on Be Real. It's in the name. It's very real. It's very authentic platform. And I think that there's a lot to be done there, and something very interesting when it comes to marketing, when it comes to being a brand on social. I am very curious to see how that platform continues to evolve and kind of what can be done with that platform marketing wise.
And they also get the bemused face of a boomer that's caught in the middle of it all as well.
Yeah, very confused about what's going on and why. That's another thing with Be Real that I forgot to mention. The camera takes a photo from both sides. So you get the front camera and the back camera. So again, very easy to capture,
And of course, audiences now, one of the things that really confuses me really is audiences expect personalized experiences with that perfect balance of authentic and real. Netflix and Spotify know what we want to listen to or what we want to watch. But getting that balance without being creepy, without being intrusive, is incredibly difficult. So how do you find the right balance there and coming across as the creepy company that's trying too hard?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, like you mentioned, it's such a funny balance because people want experiences to be easy. When I get on Netflix, for example, I do want those recommendations. But then you also, I think, with all of these iOS privacy changes and things that have come up over the past couple of years, I think that people are becoming more privy to it, and they don't like this idea of marketers or brands knowing their habits, knowing what they're doing. I think that that's another joke that you hear often is someone is talking about something and they will say, oh, I'm probably going to get an ad for that later. Or, Alexa is listening to me as I'm in here talking about X, Y, and Z in my kitchen. And so I think it is difficult to strike the right balance. But I think kind of like you mentioned with Netflix recommendations and things, I think that from a marketer's perspective and looking at retail specifically is you can do things by improving, product recommendations on your site. Do you have data that customers' buying propensities? Do you know their habits or their behaviors? And I think that you can use this level of data to make a more seamless shopping experience or just a more seamless experience in general without being too invasive. And I think the same thing goes for copy and messaging when you're looking at, push notifications or emails even. I think that it comes down to segmenting your audiences as well. If you're not going to speak to a group of loyal customers the same way that you would speak to a group of new customers. So I think that there are very slight tweaks that you can make to better experiences without being too invasive or without crossing the line necessarily. I think that also something interesting, especially being in the influencer space, that I've read about recently is that a lot of marketers with all of these iOS privacy changes have started to tap into influencer marketing rather than traditional paid social as something that is more effective and both less invasive than, traditional paid social, traditional Facebook ads, Instagram ads, what have you. You can really find influencers and creators that resonate with your audience if you have that data about your audience to find creators that really resonate with them. You can build those partnerships, and that's something that I think will be taken very well by the audience. And ultimately, as I mentioned, a lot of marketers are finding influencer marketing to be a more effective means and something that they're allocating more ad dollars to as they are seeing its effectiveness.
Love that. And of course, we're now at the time of year where futurists and technologists are looking to the next year on the kind of things that's going to dominate 2023. Are there any emerging technologies or trends that you're monitoring or excite you? I was reading about the new app Gas a couple of days ago in high schools, which is the even earlier generation, the Gen Alpha, I suppose, going after that. But what are you monitoring and what excites you?
Yeah, I think that just the continued evolution of social shopping and social commerce, I'm very eager to see how these social platforms are going to continue to evolve. I think some things with live shopping as well, live streaming. I think you've seen some of these platforms pulling back on this live shopping element. Instagram and Facebook are constantly changing and evolving their platforms, changing their algorithms, what they're favoring, what they're not favoring. So I think that it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how that piece evolves over the next while. I think, especially as it relates to Instagram, I think that it'll be really interesting to see how they find their footing, I guess, over the next while. I'm sure that you've probably seen that they've been favoring video content now and have really started to push people to use Reels. And it's really upset, I think, a lot of users and creators. And Instagram is not staying true to the app, the platform that they once were. And they're trying very hard to chase after the success that I think that TikTok has had. So I'm very interested to see kind of the evolution over the next while and what's going to be happening there. And I think, as you mentioned, I'm always excited about new platforms. As I was just speaking about Be Real, especially, I think that I'm very interested to see the evolution of that platform and what that means for marketers.
And it's interesting you mentioned about the problem with Instagram there. I was chatting with my son about this the other day, and back to mocking the previous generation again. He was saying that anybody that's looking at memes or funny jokes on Instagram Reels, they're like 3-day-old TikTok videos or a week-old TikTok videos. So
absolutely. And that's another running joke, is that if you're not viewing these short form videos, if you're not viewing them on TikTok, then you are, like your son said, you're probably 3 days late. And I see TikToks about that all the time too. It's like when you show someone or when someone who uses Reels shows you a video and it's like something that's years old, is the running joke. But that's something else I think that your son's spot on. I'm guessing, is he part of, what generation is he a part of? Is he Gen Z?
He's Gen Z, yeah. Okay. Gen Z, so he's 21. So,
which is, I feel like some of the habits you told me briefly with Be Real and his comments about TikTok and things, I was like, he sounds like he definitely fits into Gen Z.
Yeah, he's my avenue into that crazy world. So when he gets a bit older, I'm going to have to ditch him and find somebody else, But of course, the big theme of the conversation today has been about your origin story and being authentic. So we'll stick with the authentic theme here. And to leave us today, none of us are able to achieve success without a little help along the way. Even though all our social feeds look amazing, we're all living our best life. But is there a particular person that you're grateful towards? They maybe invested a bit of time in you or just helped you get where you are that we can give a little thank you to?
Yes. And I think this is a really great question. So to give you a bit of personal background, I have one sibling who is my brother, who is 12 years older than me. And we are close as ever. I definitely consider one of my best friends. And I think because he was so much older than me growing up, I kind of had this built-in mentor. And, I always looked up to him, and everything he did, I wanted to do. And I am very grateful to him because he is the reason why I decided I wanted to work in marketing. He had a really incredible career trajectory. He started working in a retail store after college and worked his way to their corporate headquarters, was with that company for several years, and then moved on to working for companies like Adidas. He's currently with a luxury fashion retailer called Redone. And, he's really just forged this amazing path. And I think that it's been so incredible to be able to just constantly pick his brain. I think even in college, that was something that I feel like I was one of the few that had an idea of what I wanted to do, because I just always said, I want to do what Robbie does. Robbie's my brother. And I always saw what he did. I saw this incredible career path that he had taken. And, he was just been so incredibly knowledgeable. So definitely grateful to him, and, forever thankful that I had this kind of built-in mentor. Even last week I was on the phone with him picking his brain about something, and we'll Slack each other and chat about different things and send articles to each other. And I definitely, my brother would be the person that I am forever grateful to, and I think absolutely got me to where I am today.
Love that. What a beautiful moment to end the podcast on. But before I let you go, for any business leaders listening that we've just scared to death, that realise that they don't know how to talk to the influencers of a certain age range out there and might need a little help, what's the best starting point for everything at AWIN and the best way of contacting your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find more about AWIN by visiting awin.com. Also, if you'd like to connect with me or contact me directly, you can find me on LinkedIn, Carissa Flinders, or please always, if you have any questions about AWIN's solutions to affiliate or influencer marketing, please feel free to reach out to my team. You can reach us at us-influencerpartnerships@awin.com.
Well, I've loved chatting with you today. And for me, the most important message was businesses must strike that perfect balance of authentic and real, while also offering the same sense of aspiration and different audiences, different messages, and not trying too hard. But more than anything, your message, your personal story brought everything to life. So thank you for sitting down and sharing that with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil. It was great to be here. Really appreciate you having me.
What a great conversation. And I think we were able to demystify what all these different generations want. But ultimately, we are all the same, regardless of our age. We want superior experiences, but equally, we don't want brands getting too intrusive by bombarding our smartphones with continuous notifications, or worse still, getting a little bit creepy on that personalisation front. So the big question after listening to today's conversation is, how are you and your business addressing the digital demands of different audiences? I'd love to hear your insights. You've heard from me, you've heard from Carissa today, but this is your turn now to get your voice heard on here. Whether you are Gen Alpha, Gen Z, Millennials, Gen X, Boomers, whatever label people may put on you, I want to hear your thoughts on everything we talked about. And you can do that by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. I try to be on all the platforms, so you can get me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, yes, TikTok at Neil C. Hughes. I'm clinging in there. Send me a DM, let me know your thoughts, and we'll keep the conversation going. I'll return again tomorrow with another guest. So thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.